Well, here we are again. Apparently we were on, not everyone could hear or see, so we'll start again briefly. Just a welcome, reminder to go onto our website for ways to contribute during coronavirus and to the church, and a reminder of the rolling rally and tribute to Beverly at noon following the service for anyone who can participate in that. But most of you have probably already heard that, and I expect you've heard Christopher's beautiful prelude as well. So we'll continue from there. We've gathered for worship, together, if not in person, most certainly in spirit. If comfort we need this day, may this service offer comfort. If inspiration we need this day, may this time together offer inspiration. And whatever our need may be for our spirits and souls, may this service open all our hearts to compassion, kindness, and love. I'll light the flaming chalice of our Unitarian Universalist faith with these words, a favorite passage of Beverly Tricot's. It's called Invocation by Angela Herrera. Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life. It has high standards and the world needs vision. Bring them with you. And your joy and your passion. Bring your loving and your courage and your conviction. Bring your need for healing and your power to heal. There is work to do, and you have all that you need to do it right here in this room. Going to sing, I hope, together. It's a song that most, if not all of you know. One sung around campfires, perhaps sometimes without a lot of thought about the words, but it was a freedom song in this time when we're seeking freedom, true freedom and equality for all. Michael Rowe, The Boat Ashore, first came to wide attention during the Civil War. Freedmen from St. Helena Islands off the Carolina shore sang it. Like many such songs, it has double meanings, crossing the River Jordan to the Promised Land after this life, or crossing the river to freedom in this life. Michael Rowe, The Boat Ashore. Michael Rowe, the boat ashore, hallelujah. Michael Rowe, the boat ashore, hallelujah. Sister, help to trim the sails, hallelujah. Sister, help to trim the sails, hallelujah. River Jordan is deep and wide. The River Jordan is deep and wide. Hallelujah. Milk and honey on the other side. Hallelujah. River Jordan is chilly and cold. River Jordan is chilly and cold. Hallelujah. Chills the body but not the soul. Hallelujah. Michael Rowe. Michael Rowe, the boat ashore. Hallelujah. Michael Rowe, the boat ashore. Hallelujah. We share our joys, sorrows, and concerns during our worship services, whether here virtually or across the street, as we will eventually return. Several of you have asked that a candle be lit on your behalf, and so I will do. This first candle requested by Catherine Mays for her husband, Stephen. Stephen is recovering at home now, gratefully, from appendicitis, and we wish him a good recovery and a quick recovery. This candle for Stephen. From Carol Schuler. Carol's daughter Gwen, her youngest child, Michael Manding, 20 years old, is being deployed to Syria today for a year. Mail, Carol says, will take 90 days and there will be no internet. So we light a candle, as Carol says, light a candle for Michael this morning with our hope for a safe return. We light a candle of deep sympathy for Eileen McIntyre and her family. Eileen's sister KJ died early this week from complications following surgery 3 weeks ago. Eileen described her sister as vivacious, strong, and witty, somebody who contributed to the world in many ways, including in retirement, volunteering for a number of civic and philanthropic organizations. She lived in Kingston, New York. And we light this candle in memory of Eileen's sister, and our hearts extend to Eileen and all her family in their time of grief. Gail Slater says, I'm probably one of many who would suggest a candle of joy for the Supreme Court decision this week having to do with the employment and equal employment and rights for the LGBTQ community will all rest, she says, a bit better knowing the court has done the right thing by so many among us we love. From the Jordan family, Keely, Diane, and Michael, a candle of love and appreciation for Beverly. They write, our lives have been changed for the better, for knowing her, and for that we are forever grateful. Many blessings for her journey ahead, and we hope to cross paths again. No doubt that's a candle whose sentiments many, we all share. I light this final candle on Father's Day for fathers. I'm going to say a few more words about Beverly. As she approaches retirement, just a week or so, we recognize and honor her for her 12 years as our Director of Religious Education and for her 25-year career as a Director of Religious Education elsewhere, and then the last 12 years here. There's so much that we can name. We don't have time for it all. We can name her dedication, her unflagging dedication, first to the well-being and care of each child, each youth in our congregation, for their safety, for their well-being, for their growth, and their learning. She holds them all always in her heart. We recognize her dedication to social justice, which she brought to her care of our young people, naming, honestly, the challenges we face as a society and in our relationships, and helping those in her charge to grow towards being among those, and being among those even as young people who help to make this world more just and peaceful. We name her dedication, in short, to learning and teaching for all ages. There's so many ways in which we're going to be recognizing Beverly, and here you see a rocking chair that she has had her eyes on for a long time. That will be hers from today on. There are flowers. There's the mini Bev right there, and a trophy to honor all of her time serving the children and youth and the families in our congregation. For my story this morning, I want to talk about Beverly, what she calls her superpowers. And she says that humbly, if that's possible to talk about one's superpowers humbly. She has special gifts, some of which I've named, but some of which are a little more obscure. One of her superpowers was on display just a few weeks ago. I was in the office across the hall, the administrator office, and I heard some scuffling or something in the fireplace. It's a closed off fireplace. We never use it. We thought it had been sealed off, but something was in there. I thought maybe a squirrel or a chipmunk. That's going to be trouble. But I looked more closely, and now and then I saw fluttering. It was a bird. What is one to do? I was alone in the parish house at the time Well, I thought, okay, I'll close the door to the office, I'll open all the windows, I'll open the doors to the fireplace and just hope the bird flies out. But what if the bird doesn't? Well, I had emailed and called a couple of other folks. Finally, I got Beverly on the line, and she knew just what to do. It was one of her superpowers, turns out. She said, go into the nursery, get a blanket, be ready. When you open the doors, if the bird doesn't flutter right out, just carefully put the blanket underneath the bird, nest it in your hands, cover it. Now, I thought by then, to tell you the truth, the bird was done. It hadn't moved for a while. But I did just what Beverly said. Got the bird, went outside, went to the side yard, didn't want it flying back in. And the bird flew away, just like that, gone, as if it did this every day. Thanks to one of Beverly's superpowers. Well, thanks to so much, Beverly, and we still have a week with you, but we wish you well as the weeks beyond that unfold. An Irish blessing.
Rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall softly upon your fields. And until we meet again, and until we meet again, may the God that loves us all hold you in the palm of his hand.
And we pause for meditation and prayer, slowing down, becoming more fully present. Breathe into presence. Awaken to this moment. Be alert to our heart's yearnings, whatever they may be. Prayers to the God of our hearts, God of blessings. Continued prayers of gratitude, so much gratitude for all those in our lives who care and help us, and for all the helpers and healers more broadly, and courageous justice seekers in our land, in the world. 2 days after Juneteenth, continued prayers for racial justice in particular. May we all have the strength to persist beyond these days of demonstrating and talking and reading, to persist as long as racist systems continue and prevent the fulfillment of the promise of real equality for all. And on this Father's Day, prayers of gratitude for fathers, for the fathers and the father figures who raised and or mentored us. For fathers, we pray prayers of gratitude and prayers holding each individual in our community of faith in the midst of whatever personal sorrow or challenges each may be facing. As we pause in silent communion, yes, at a distance, but together in spirit. Two readings this morning. The first, two short verses from the Gospel of Matthew. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. Blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. Second reading comes from a book by John O'Donohue, Anam Cara, which means soul friend. The first section I've condensed considerably. I think you'll get the spirit, and then a paragraph following. To the fearful eye, all is threatening. To the greedy eye, all can be possessed. To the judgmental eye, everything is closed in definitive frames. To the resentful eye, everything is begrudged. To the indifferent eye, nothing calls or awakens. To the inferior eye, everyone else is greater. To the loving eye, everything is real. This art of love is neither sentimental or naive. Such love is the greatest criterion of truth, celebration, and reality. Kathleen Raine, O'Donohue writes, a Scottish poet, says that unless you see a thing in the light of love, you do not see it at all. Love is the light in which we see light. Love is the light in which we see each thing in its true origin, nature, and destiny. If we can look at the world in a loving way, then the world would rise up before us full of invitation, possibility, and depth. The loving eye can even coax pain, hurt, and violence toward transfiguration and renewal. Here end the readings. Now we listen to the gift of love. The gift of love.
I may speak with bravest heart, and have the gift to all inspire, and have not love, my words are vain, as sounding brass and hopeless I may give all I possess, and striving small my love profess, but not begin my love with thee, the prophet soon turn strangely come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole, that in our love guide every deed. By this we worship and are free.
Do we have eyes to see? My father, when he was not being a surgeon, was an artist. In 1979, he gave me, not an artist, he gave me a little paperback volume that he'd treasured for a long time. The copyright was 1960. It was called To Paint is to Love Again. It was by Henry Miller. Now, Henry Miller is most often thought of as a writer. He wrote quite a number of books, many of which were banned at the time of publication back in the 1930s, I guess it was, 40s. Not this one, though. In any case, he was also a prolific watercolor artist, and hence this little book, a meditation, a reflection on the meaning of art and, by extension, life. Now, what does the title mean? Well, to begin with, Miller wrote quite simply, to paint is to love again, and to love is to live to the fullest. All right, but that's sort of bland, almost a cliche. Fortunately, he goes on a little later, and not at all in a bland way. He wrote, in love, self is obliterated. Only the beloved counts. Whether the beloved is a bowl of fruit, a pastoral scene, or the interior of a bawdy house makes no difference. One must be in it and of it wholly. Before a subject can be transmuted aesthetically, it must be devoured and absorbed. If it is a painting, it must perspire with ecstasy. Well, that's pretty strong stuff indeed. But I think it's in the same territory as that passage from John O'Donohue that we heard a few minutes ago, where we don't have to be, nor are we all, painters, artists, to learn to see with loving eyes rather than with fearful or greedy or resentful or all those other kinds of eyes. We just have to practice truly seeing, not just looking. Over and over again, Jesus would conclude, we offer a parable and then conclude with words something like, let those who have eyes to see and ears to hear understand. Well, clearly Jesus was talking about more than physical seeing. After all, not everyone can see or physically hear. He was talking about something other than that, deeper than that, spiritual, perhaps. Now, as I've reflected this week on that John O'Donohue passage, coupled with Jesus' words, it came to me that the different ways of seeing that John O'Donohue names, fearful, greedy, resentful, begrudging, and so on, can be felt quite physically. These are not just abstractions to ponder in our heads, for we know what it feels like, don't we? To look at the world with fearful eyes, with greedy eyes, and the rest. We know what it feels like. I invite you to look at something or somebody right now. Anything, doesn't matter, just look. And seek to look, to see with loving eyes, if you weren't already. To absorb whatever it is that you're looking at, or whomever it is, as Miller suggested. And I'm pretty sure that as you do this and seek to see with loving eyes, you'll feel a physical sensation, or more than one sensation of the eyes just relaxing, maybe your whole forehead relaxing, sort of opening outwardly and inwardly. It is a lovely feeling. When, for example, I think of the work, ministry really, that Beverly has offered all these 12 years, it's clear, as I said earlier, that she saw each child, each youth with loving eyes, saw each one of them in their wholeness for who they most truly and fully are. Now, Beverly is, as most of you know, an actual artist, and a fine one at that. Well, it seems to me that she brought to her work with the children and youth of our congregation that same artist's eye, really seeing, the eye of love. Now, truth be told, most of us do know what it feels like to look through those other kinds of eyes. We know what it feels like when we're fearful, greedy, and the rest. And it's too often reflexive in one situation or another, and sometimes appropriate to be fearful. There is something to fear. In any case, as for me, I'm trying out a practice inspired by this passage, these thoughts from John O'Donohue, trying out a practice of noticing when I'm seeing with other than the eyes of love, and then relaxing my eyes, my forehead, and so on, relaxing, letting my eyes reopen to see with the eyes of love, to truly see what I'm looking at, as Jesus put it. To see George Floyd, to see his family, to see all the others who've died from police violence and from racism in its many forms, to see their families, to see each person. As Alice Walker put it in a poem I shared a few weeks ago, if you love America, love Americans. Love Americans of all kinds, sizes, shapes, religions, genders, colors. And to see not just people, of course people, but to see the trees out my window, the grass, the flowers, to see, really see the birds and the chipmunks. You may have heard a chipmunk outside the window. I'm not sure if that was carrying earlier. To see and hear. And the turkeys, the deer, the occasional coyote, to really see. To see our threatened earth in all of its particularities and in all of its wholeness. And to see with our mind's eye our brothers and sisters, too often brown and black, poorest, already living at the margins, most affected by climate crisis. To see one another in our congregation, to see, whether we agree or disagree about whatever issue is facing us as a congregation, to really see one another. Yes, to see more often with the eyes of love, making everything real with faith that, as John O'Donohue wrote, the loving eye can even coax pain, hurt, and violence towards transfiguration and renewal. Now, let me be clear on something here before I conclude this morning. To see with the eyes of love, to see with the eyes that Jesus invited us to see with, that John O'Donohue knows, to see with the eyes of love does not mean that we don't hold people and institutions to account for harmful, racist, or environmentally destructive behavior. Not at all. That too is essential. It does mean seeing deeply and compassionately, remembering with Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr., that hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. His words. Well, here's one final brief way of putting my message this morning. Now, perhaps the artist's eye, whether artist with paintbrush or artist of the spirit, a Jesus, a Buddha, and so on, the artist's eye must be all our eyes, always, as best we can. Is there a better spiritual practice for these times, for any times, for all our lives? As best we can. So may it be. So may it be. Christopher and I are going to sing, and I hope you'll join us. We sent out this hymn in our email. If you've got one of our Teal hymn books, how could anyone, number 1053 in this hymn book, how could anyone? We'll sing it at least twice through. It's very short, and maybe a third time. I'll let you know. How could anyone?
Anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
How could anyone?
How could anyone ever
Anything less than beautiful?
anything less than
How could anyone?
How could anyone ever tell
You
you
were less than whole.
less than whole? How could
Anyone fail to notice
know
your loving is a miracle?
that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
We'll sing it one more time.
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone
unbearable.
Your loving is
How deeply you're
unbearable.
connected to my soul.
How deeply
You're connected to my soul. Ordinarily, this would be our flower Sunday, everyone bringing a flower to contribute to a bouquet and then taking a different flower home. Well, we can't do that this year as a way of symbolizing the beauty of our community. So instead, I offer this primrose to all of you. I wish you could just take it from my hand, but you'll have to imagine that. Be well, be safe, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, take care of everyone as best you can, as best we all can. So may it be. Amen. To a Wild Rose. Music director of Old Ship, over all the years and decades, works for us, offers music to us from September through June. This means we say farewell for a couple of months to Christopher, with many, many thanks, Christopher, for all you've given us just in the few months that you've been with us since last November. Have a beautiful summer, you and Steve. I will extinguish these flames as we do each week, but as we know each week, the love with which they were lit, the joys, the sorrows that they hold, the love they hold cannot be extinguished. That light, the light of love, goes with us wherever we go. Many blessings to everyone. From the God beyond all names, the God of many names, through us, blessings to all. Go in peace.